What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? Geraldo Perdomo delivers in his debut, and the Dbacks stomp out the LA Angels in Game 1 of their series.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to the always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com to see all of my latest work. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we'll talk about the debut after his long-awaited injury for Geraldo Perdomo. Talk about if the Dbacks can go on a run because of their schedule opening up a little bit. And can the offense keep it going the rest of the series against the Angels? But before we get into that, thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube, so please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. Now, let's get into the podcast and let's talk about Geraldo Perdomo and the D-backs Game 1 victory over the Angels because they stomped out the Angels 9-4. 15 hits on the scoreboard, and we got to see the debut of Perdomo back with the D-backs, and he wasted no time being effective, being efficient, and making an impact with the team. His first at-bat with the game brought home a run. First pitch he saw, he dunked it and ripped it into left field for a single. Perdomo looked really good offensively, didn't skip a beat. He was in there taking his pitches, making the opposing pitcher, work the count against Geraldo Perdomo as he always does so well. Great plate discipline by Domo. And I thought immediately in Game 1, you saw him working the pitcher, working the count, and using that great eye he has at the plate. The offense overall on the night, it was the story of the game. You first have to talk about Geraldo Perdomo, the long-awaited return for him, because I know a lot of people that think life is going to change for the D-backs with Domo back. And through one game, life is looking a lot back with Domo in the lineup, but it's not just him. As we have said on this podcast, I believe life wasn't going to change with Domo coming back because even if Domo played well, that wasn't going to change the fortune of the D-backs. It was the fact that Gurriel, Carroll, Eugenio, this guy, that guy was all struggling. Marte was coming off the hitting streak. He was struggling. There was too many players in this D-backs lineup that were just not producing. And I was like, shortstop has not been your problem. Blaze and Kevin Newman have done a fine job for you at shortstop this year. Even Perdomo comes back and puts up all-star numbers. That's not changing life for you. I know how important his bat is, that number 9 hole. I know about his play discipline. But even with all that being said, he's not changing life for you if the rest of the players just don't step up and start playing better. And recently, over the last couple weeks, that has been the switch that has flipped for the D-backs as the rotation has gotten more hurt. Feels like the offense has taken it upon themselves to be better. Gabriel Moreno, I was questioning why he got moved up to the number 2 spot before today's game because he's been struggling all season. I will eat my words on this one for today. I will give credit where credit is due to Torey Lovullo. And Gabriel Moreno, 3 hits, a couple of doubles, 2 RBIs, just looked really good, really comfortable at the plate. The ball was jumping off his bat. Lourdes Gurriel, 3 for 5, 2 RBIs. He's been heating up in the RBI department, bringing home a whole lot of runs, doing a great job of producing in that middle of the lineup recently because that's what he was doing so good to begin the season. He was the leader in RBIs for the D-backs those first 20 games. He was ripping it in the clutch situations, and recently Gurriel has been back to being that clutch player that he was at the beginning of the season. His slash line now 254, 293, 409, still where we don't want to be, but starting to trend in the right direction. Randal Grichuk, he had himself a big night. He was on cycle watch pretty early. He started the game with like a triple and a home run. So very quickly, he was on cycle watch. He was 3 for 4, 3 runs, 2 RBIs. His slash line down the season, 316, 367, 480. I thought he should have been batting number 2 over Moreno, but the lineup worked out beautifully no matter where they were hitting. Grichuk, I think, has been so important to this D-backs team offensively this year. His bat has been super consistent. Maybe he doesn't have as much pop as we would want from time to time, consistently throughout the year, but right now, his slugging is 480. He gets on base a good amount. He has a high average. Like Grichuk, for what you thought you were signing him to be in the offseason, has crushed it. The DH position for the D-backs has crushed it. Grichuk and Jock Peterson have been so valuable to this team offensively. Those were 2 really good value signings by Mike Hazen, so want to give credit where credit is due. And Corbin Carroll, the last piece who really had himself a great offensive game. Carroll, 3 for 4, 2 runs at RBI, and also on cycle watch, Corbin Carroll was. I thought we were going to get a home run. I mean, we were on home run watch for that last at bat, because if he hit the home run, he would have had the cycle, of course. And being in the building for a Corbin Carroll cycle would have been a historic moment. I could have said I was in the building for the game that turned around Corbin Carroll's season. But nonetheless, Carroll had himself a great day. Carroll, Gurriel, Grichuk, and Geraldo Perdomo all were fantastic game 1. The guys who weren't, Christian Walker, 0 for 5, couple strikeouts. And of course, Eugenio Suarez really struggled in game 1. But overall, the offense was incredible. 7 for 19 with runners in scoring position. They consistently had guys on the bases, action going. You didn't even have to create chaos via the steal or really get too aggressive on the base paths. The opposing pitchers for the Angels just weren't intimidating at all, and the D-backs offense was able to take advantage of it. The bullpen came in and did their job. Ginkel, Justin Martinez, and then, of course, Bryce Jarvis to finish it off. Jordan Montgomery, a start where he was just fine. I didn't think it was great, Jordan Montgomery. He was mid, 3 earned runs over 5.2 innings pitched. I would have liked him to go 6 innings, 2 earned runs. I thought that was going to be in the cards for Monty. In the end, he was fine. He did just enough to keep the D-backs in the ball game. It felt like this game had potential to get out of the hand for the D-backs, because at one point it was 2-2 after that 3rd inning. The Angels were doing a really good job of keeping it close. It was 5-3 after the 5th inning. And it was like, okay, are the Angels going to come back in this one? No, D-backs offense was able to step up, put the Angels away, and really solidify a good game 1 victory over the Angels. You're still a half game back in the wild card race, but we're going to talk about how the schedule is shaping up, where the D-backs could potentially go on a run and maybe steal one of those 2 wild card spots, and we'll break that down in segment number 2. Here on Locked On Diamondbacks, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, it's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800 549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in the description episode below. You also need to use America's #1 fantasy sports app called Prize Picks, because with more than 5 million members, it is the most fun, exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game by watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections, and you're locked in. There's always action on Prize Picks, and this is the perfect time to try out something new as basketball is winding down. Make sure to try out esports this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about how that schedule for the Dbacks is kind of opening up in a way where the Dbacks have a chance and have some potential to go on a run. Now, I will preface it by saying this. For the Dbacks to go on a run, they will have to handle their business and do something that they haven't done all year, which is taking care of the team that they should take care of. How many series this year where the Dbacks have gone teams on paper that we consider inferior compared to our expectations of the Dbacks, the talent that the Dbacks have had, like when they went against the Miami Marlins and lost 2 out of 3? How shocked were you? Because we were all like, the Marlins are a vulnerable team, and yes, the Dbacks are not having a good season. We should still beat the Marlins in a series. And no, our offense went completely cold against the Marlins. We lost the first 2 games of the series to the New York Mets, where it felt like we were going to lose that series. Thankfully, we responded and was able to split it still. We lost 2 out of 3 to the Detroit Tigers. Like, there have been some really bad losses recently in the month of May to some inferior opponents where it's like the D-backs had their opportunities to climb back in the standings. You beat the Dodgers. Right after them, you got the Miami Marlins. You got teams like the New York Mets, and the D-backs were not able to handle their business against any of those teams. Even the Texas Rangers, a team who is, yes, the reigning World Series champs. We saw them in the World Series. We know everything about them. They have not been that good this season, and the D-backs lose 2 straight games to the Texas Rangers. They have not been able to handle business against inferior, vulnerable opponents all season long, and for the D-backs to go on a run against the schedule that we're going to talk about, they need to finally handle their business, and we'll see if they can do that, because this upcoming schedule for the D-backs has opened up in a way where they have a potential to go on a little run and really climb in the standings. The next 3 series for the D-backs, including this one, is not too tough, and if you look at the series for the rest of the month, all very winnable. You start off with the LA Angels. Right now, the Angels have horrendous pitching and an offense that doesn't score. You should win, D-backs, at least 2 of the next 3 games against the LA Angels. You handled your business in game 1. You need to win at least 1 more game in this series because you're a better team than LA. Against the Chicago White Sox, the White Sox are one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. They actually have the worst record in Major League Baseball. The White Sox are horrendous. They're the lowest scoring team in the American League. The White Sox are a team that you should absolutely crush and win at least 2 of the 3 games against the White Sox. And then after that, you do have to face a scrappy Washington Nationals team who is currently 3rd from the bottom in the National League, even a game and a half behind teams. Excuse me, not 3rd in the National League. 1 second, guys. The Nationals are 4th from the bottom of the National League. I want to get it correct. That's who you're going against right after the Chicago White Sox. 3 very winnable series against some of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. All those teams are struggling. I'll say the Nationals have the most talent of those 3. I do think there's some intriguing high upside players on the Nationals that could really break out over the next couple of years, where the Nationals could be an intriguing team. But as it currently stands on paper, those are 3 very winnable series. Then you got the Phillies after Nationals. I will admit that is very tough. That's not easy. But then after that, Minnesota Twins, who are like a near 500 team. Then you get the A's to end the season. And all those series are at home except for the Nationals and the Phillies. And the Dbacks have proved to the Phillies already. They're not afraid to go into Philadelphia and win a series. So when I'm looking at the rest of June, Angels, White Sox, Nationals, Phillies, Twins, A's, like the D-backs should probably win. How many series is that? 6? The D-backs should win at least 4 of those 6. And realistically, they should win every series outside the Philly series. Like, they are better than the Minnesota Twins, I believe, at least in terms of talent. I know the Twins have been better than them this season, but again, on paper, I believe a healthy D-backs team, and we'll see if they're healthy by the Twins. Hopefully, a guy like at least Zach Gallen's back by then. But I believe on paper right now, the D-backs are a better team than the Twins, and they have a chance to really go on a run for the rest of June if they are able to handle business. And one guy that should hopefully help them out and handle some business is Geraldo Perdomo, who we already saw his importance and impact in Game 1, his clutchness. If he can do what he did last year, which was elite play discipline, he did a good job of drawing walks and most importantly, not striking out. And then he was also a super clutch hitter like we saw tonight in his debut. He did a great job of coming through with runners in scoring position. And also he played really good defense and versatile defense. Shortstop, third base, Perdomo could do it all. So for the D-backs, I think he's going to be a very critical piece for the D-backs going forward. I didn't think he was going to change life or be the catalyst that changes everything for the D-backs in the offense, but I do think he's really important, and what he can do at the bottom of the lineup for the D-backs, I think it just only stretches out the lineup so much more. And we'll talk about if we should see Perdomo potentially almost every day if the D-backs move off of Eugenio Suarez, because Suarez has obviously not been that good this year. So I want to talk about what the D-backs should do on the left side of their infield in segment number 3. But hey, if you're looking for any parts for your vehicle, then the place you're going to want to go is, of course, eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home that huge win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's wrap up the podcast by previewing game number 2 and discussing the D-backs left side of the infield, because, hold on, let me take down this little banner first. There we go for the YouTube audience. Because for the D-backs, we need to know if they can keep their offense going. The offense has been really good recently. As we've talked about, individually, guys are stepping up. Carroll has been hot, over 300 average over his last 8 games. Same with Gurriel. Marte's heating back up. Jake McCarthy has been raking. There have been some really good players for the D-backs over the last week plus, and the offense seems to be turning around. It's not just individually. As a team, they're playing really well because they are stringing together hits, sequencing, and getting some crooked numbers on the scoreboard. I believe in 10 of their last 12 games, they have at least 9 hits now. Like, this D-backs offense has done a really good job of at least stacking together hits. And when they get less than double-digit strikeouts in a game, that is when their offense is at its absolute best. And for the D-backs to be at their absolute best, like I just said, that's when they don't strike out a ton. As we saw tonight, 6 Ks, 6 walks. When walks and strikeouts are very close in the box score for the D-backs, that's typically when they win, and that's typically when their offense has good outputs. And of course, when you look at the strikeouts in this game, 30% of the strikeouts went to one guy, Eugenio Suarez, who has been a big struggle for the D-backs this season. And after this game, his average 197, his OBP 263, and his slugging 312. I think the days of Eugenio Suarez are coming to a close for the D-backs. As we've already discussed on yesterday's podcast, it sounds like the D-backs are looking for deals for Eugenio Suarez, but I don't think anything is going to happen there. I think with Eugenio, he is going to get DFA'd because right now he looks lost. And to be honest, he swings at every single pitch. I think he's just predetermined at the plate. He's like, I don't care where this pitch is going to be. I'm going to swing no matter what, because the dude will throw it in the dirt repeatedly, and Eugenio Suarez will swing at everything outside the zone. And it's pretty disgusting to see. And even if you watch what he did in game number 1, Grichuk starts the game in the second inning, triple, man on third, nobody out. What does Eugenio Suarez do? He strikes out and does nothing for the D-backs in that situation. Then how about bottom of the third? Or that's not the good situation. That's not the one I'm thinking of. There's another situation with Eugenio Suarez. Right here, Eugenio Suarez later in the game in the 6th inning, bases loaded. You had Gurriel was on second. Grichuk had just walked. You had the bases loaded for Eugenio Suarez. And what does he do? Absolutely nothing in the bottom of the 6th inning. And when he goes to first base, you can see he's frustrated. He slams his helmet on the ground. Eugenio Suarez offensively just doing nothing for the D-backs. Yes, his defense is good, but right now, I would take Evan Longoria offensively over Eugenio Suarez. I don't think there's much of a difference between those two guys in terms of their output with the D-backs the last 2 years. So what should the D-backs do going forward? I think especially seeing that there was a righty on the mound in game 2, like Eugenio Suarez as a righty batter. Tori, you love the platoon splits. Send Eugenio Suarez to the bench. Domo, you're a switch hitter. You can bat. You can play third base. Or just choose between Blaze or Kevin Newman. Do some combination with Domo playing, and then you choose between Blaze and Kevin Newman. I don't care who plays third. I don't care who plays shortstop. You put Domo in the lineup just because he's a lefty, and then you choose between Blaze and Newman. All 3 of those guys could play shortstop or third base. I don't really care who gets what position at that point. But with the righty on the mound, I think Eugenio Suarez definitely needs to be on the bench. And moving forward, whenever there's a righty on the mound, I think Eugenio Suarez should just be on the bench. Until he gets DFA'd, which should be when Alek Thomas gets back. Eugenio has until then to either get traded or go on a tear where he's getting a hit like 3 out of 4 times he's up at the plate, because right now he is just swinging at every pitch. He's striking out a ton, and he is doing nothing to help out or contribute to the D-backs offensively, and it's really disgusting. I think going forward, we need way more Perdomo, Blaze Alexander, and Kevin Newman on the left side of the infield, especially when there's a righty on the mound. Torey Lovullo, you love the platoon splits. I better see Eugenio Suarez to the bench. And then for the offense to keep it going, one guy we're going to need to step up a little bit more is a Christian Walker, who we talked about on yesterday's podcast when we did Who's Hot, Who's Not. Walker struck out like a bunch in the last week, and then he struck out a couple more times today. 0 for 5 for the D-backs in game number 1. Like, the whole offense is going off. Everyone's having a great time. And then Christian Walker and Eugenio Suarez are like the 2 guys who are just not contributing anything offensively. Christian Walker, I'm okay when he doesn't contribute. He has his moments where he goes like 2 weeks in a slump, and then he'll go 3 weeks on a bender. He's a hot and cold guy, so I'm okay with him. He's a month-by-month case. I'm not worried about Christian Walker. Eugenio Suarez is the biggest problem right now. And so for him, He needs to go. Walker needs to step up, but he's not the problem. So many dudes are stepping up for the D-backs right now. I'm okay with Walker being in a little bit of a slump because I know eventually he'll come around. Then starting for the D-backs, Slade Cecconi. I want to see if he can do another manageable start. He did a great job his last 2 outings of just keeping the D-backs in the ball game. Against the Padres, 4.1 innings pitched, 3 earned runs. The start before that against the Mets, 4.2 innings pitched, 1 earned run. He has done just enough to keep the D-backs in the ball game and keep it manageable and keep it close. If he can do that once again against the LA Angels, where the D-backs offense can potentially take advantage against the Angels pitching, all you got to do is keep it to within 3 runs, let the bullpen come in and shut it down, and then I think that should be enough for the D-backs to secure their victory in game number 2. And if you secure the victory in game 2, listen, I will be happy with that result in the series. You get a series win over the Angels. Yes, a sweep would be nice, but at least win every series going forward, maybe outside the Phillies for the rest of June. And if you do that, you will set yourself up perfectly in the wild card race come the second half of the season. Now that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.